What is up, guys? Aksis here, and this is the Wrath of the Machine Heroic Mode for Dummies. The complete raid walkthrough going over every single mechanic of every single encounter to make your time through the Wrath of the Machine Heroic Mode as easy as possible. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer for this video. I, of course, made the original Wrath of the Machine guide for Dummies when the original raid came out. Almost at 1 million views. Thank you guys so much for your support on that video. Again, if you enjoy this video, please also remember to support it. But this video is being made with the expectation that you guys have already viewed either that video or are familiar with the original normal mode raid tactics. Today's video is really going to focus on the differences between the normal and heroic mode mechanics and how to overcome those and complete the new heroic mode Wrath of the Machine raid. Now, with that being said and done, let's start this guide. Now, the very first starting encounter that lets you open up the rest of the raid seems to be unchanged in its mechanics. Stuff may take a little bit longer and enemies may have a little bit more health, but other than that, the actual mechanics of running, collecting 4 of the charges to get a voltage maximum, and then going and slamming that energy into the different devices, throwing the bombs at the boss, and then damaging that boss, that is all exactly the same as it is in the normal mode, and additionally, you're actually still going to have a respawn timer in this first encounter, even on the heroic mode. Now, once you've completed this first encounter, you're going to stumble right upon that first exotic raid chest. It's a very good idea to go out of your way and hit all of these exotic raid chests. I've made a video where all of them are. That'll be annotated right now, popping up. It's simply because the raid chest seems to be a little bit weird, actually. Some of us got exotics that were 385 that were pretty much matched up with our level, that seemed to be almost as if they were dropping before this update, and others of us got exotics all the way up to like 394. So it is definitely worth it to hit these exotic chests, because if you do get a highlighted exotic, you can use that or infuse that right away and increase your light, hopefully, during your run through. We then move on to the first real encounter of the raid, and this encounter really does make it feel like hard mode. The mechanics have been dialed up pretty substantially, and you're really gonna have to be on your toes. Now, this encounter is identical in its layout to its normal mode counterpart, but the mechanics have just been made harder to complete. Firstly, when the Siva bombs drop, to which you throw at the boss to lower his shields, no more is there going to be 1 for each side, left, right, and middle, but now you're going to have 6. So every single teammate is going to have to pick up these Siva bombs and throw them at Vosik to lower his shield. Now, just like before, if you don't have your timing right, his barrier will kind of regenerate, and you're going to have to go more than 3 rounds in order to completely lower his barrier and then move on to the damage phase. However, in hard mode, because there are quite literally double the amount of Siva bombs, there isn't quite the necessity my team found to all throw them at the exact same time, to do the whole 1, 2, 3 throw. Now, the reason being is because as long as he has been consistently hit with bombs, so as long as he's getting hit, like that kind of regularity, his shield won't regenerate and he won't lose that damage per second. The problem is going to be if most of your team throws it at one time and then a couple seconds goes by and then someone who's lagging behind throws that bomb, that last bomb is the one that isn't going to do the damage. So my team found that the best thing to do is to simply throw the bombs almost immediately upon getting them. Pretty much all of your team will get them at relatively the same time, and because you're going to have what is essentially a constant stream of damage on Vosik, his shield is unlikely to regenerate. And this is also important because if you spend too long in the open going 3, 2, 1, okay, throw them at the same time, the main problem in this encounter is the ads. There's a lot of ads, they spawn quite regularly, and while in normal mode you may be able to tank a few rounds, in hard mode you're going to be able to tank a lot less rounds. And of course, because it's hard mode, if someone dies, they stay dead. So of course, be communicating with your team and trying to throw those bombs at relatively the same time, but be prioritizing getting them out of your hands and not dying rather than throwing them at the exact same time. Even if you have to do an extra damage phase, it's going to be a lot easier to do this than try to calculate the exact time to throw them and likely leave some of your teammates a little more exposed than they'd like to be. But what I said earlier about ads being a really big problem in this encounter is definitely true. I would highly recommend running at least one person on each side with an area of effect super, a hammer, a Stormcaller Warlock to be able to take down these ads very quickly. And seriously, don't be afraid to utilize your supers even if it's a tether on these ads. It's no good saving everything for the boss if your team keeps dying before they even get to damage the boss, if you know what I mean. Moving on, after taking care of the ads and throwing all of the bombs, you will again have to deal with a random monitor that pops up. You have to shoot this monitor as quickly as possible. If you don't, there will be a Siva density increases mechanic and your team will automatically wipe. Now there is a difference, a definite difference in the health of the monitors between normal and hard mode. The hard mode monitors take a lot more shots to kill, so make sure your entire team is engaging that monitor. Now once you've completed a few rounds and done enough damage to his shields with the bombs, you're going to lower his shields completely and enter into the damage phase. Meet in the middle, DPS the crap out of him with sleepers, with Galahorns, with whatever you have, pop a Weapons of Light, bubble, or use a tether to increase that damage output, and just go to town. The mechanics are basically the same in this part as it is in normal mode. In fact, the Siva bombs are also 2 of them going to drop, so make sure to throw those at him. Those are going to do a lot of damage. However, after you damage him and you then have to run to one of the rooms in the right or left side of this encounter, you'll notice that there's actually a metal barrier blocking most of this room. You're going to have to crouch walk or slide underneath to enter into these safe rooms properly. Now this is potentially going to be a little bit problematic. Sometimes you're going to get stuck. If you miss the slide, you're going to have to crouch again and get in. The main purpose of this is just to add a few seconds that it's going to take to get into these safe rooms. Now that few seconds is a big deal. You have to do this as quickly as possible. And in normal mode, if a couple of players got left outside, wasn't that big of a deal. But in hard mode, because they don't respawn, it's a very big deal. So make sure to have one of your teammates during the end of the damage phase. Once the Siva bombs drop, one of your teammates should be looking around at that point and figuring out exactly which one of these rooms is open and communicate to everyone where to go. Because again, it's essential to have your entire team survive this Siva blast in the safe room. And that is really it to the mechanics and the changes of mechanics in this encounter. You're just going to do that same thing probably 2 more times. One of those times, in the end, you're going to have to deal with shanks instead of the normal enemies. So just be aware of that. The exploder shanks are going to be a problem. But again, aside from that, nothing will change. Now, once you kill Vosik, you are going to have access to that new hard mode loot. You're going to get these same armor jobs that you did before, but they will be the hard mode armor jobs. They're going to look a little differently, and they're going to spawn with a higher light. Now you can also get the normal mode drops from this same encounter. Like you'll see, I actually got the normal mode boots and the hard mode boots. The normal mode boots can only drop up to 385, as you can see, and the hard mode boots for me drop to 391, so a lot better. Now, very importantly, I'm going to save you guys a lot of grief here. There is a slight change to the reward system for hard mode. So now with this encounter, whereas before you could only get the fusion rifle and shotgun, you can now get any special. So we had a teammate get a sniper, I got the sidearm, and those are now unlocked for you. But additionally, just like last time, you can use a Siva cache key from your inventory that you can remember. You can go into your inventory and use 10 Siva fragments to make more keys, but you can open another one of those caches, and those are going to basically give you another chance to get loot. Now again, very importantly, instead of where before there was only 1 cache, there's now 2. One will say in brackets normal loot, and the other will say in brackets hard loot. The hard chest is actually black and the normal chest is brown, as you can see here. Make sure you're opening that new hard mode chest so you get newer gear and higher light gear. Now I know if I didn't go over this, some people wouldn't even be looking for it and they'd accidentally open that normal mode chest. In fact, we had a teammate who did it twice. You'd think he'd learn. In any event, be sure to look out for this, and if you have a Siva cache key, open the hard mode chest, and it's basically going to give you another chance at getting a drop from this encounter. It's basically like beating the boss twice. Moving on, we have the Siege Engine encounter. Now the beginning of this counter is going to play out exactly the same as it did in normal mode. You're going to have to shoot the right and left turrets on the Death Zamboni's, I guess, head, and then shoot the middle while taking care of a lot of ads. Now again, dying in hard mode is really bad. You can't be revived, and a lot of people die on this opening sequence, in normal mode, so you're really gonna have to make sure to be on top of those ads, and the best way to do that is to use area of effect supers. Hammer is excellent, but a Stormcaller Warlock is amazing in this part, and so is a Tether. Use a Tether with Black Hole and just smoke a bunch of enemies, like throw it very much in the middle of where all these enemies are spawning, and then just slow them all down, distract them, make them a lot easier to kill. You're really, again, going to need to keep on top of these ads if you're going to want to get onto the Siege Engine with no deaths and continue to the next section. Now this section is going to have you bring 3 parts back to the Siege Engine and install them in the correct location. The most important thing that I have to stress for hard mode is that actually you have a lot more time to do this section. In normal mode, you're really worried about doing this as quickly as possible, because if you don't, your team will just wipe. There'll be a mechanic that just completely kills your team if you don't do it fast enough. But in hard mode, we found that, again, you have so much more time, even the normal mode, to do this encounter. So my main tip is to take it slow. There's a lot of things that kill you very fast. The ships are one of them, the captains are another. So hang back, take it slow, wait for the ships to leave before you move out into the open with those parts, having some bubbles so your team can hide in those bubbles while the ships are dropping enemies down, and then as soon as those ships leave, hop out of the bubble, go to town on the ads. Like, don't be afraid to spend a lot. Galahorn rounds, supers, everything on your ads. You're not saving your Galahorns for any sort of boss fight. You're not saving your super for any sort of boss fight. Just use those very aggressively in taking down those ads as quickly as possible so your team doesn't die. But also, again, don't be afraid to kind of move a little bit slower than you normally would in normal mode, because you do have a lot more time for this encounter. Now, why do you have so much more time? Well, there was one extra thing added, and it's actually a Siva spider tank was added into this encounter, so you are going to have to deal with that as well. But actually, it really wasn't a big deal. Use your Galahorns, use your supers, use your snipers if you have one. However, I would still recommend a shotgun for this encounter. So good against captains and other ads. But just take that tank down when you can. Then, after doing so, you're going to have to hop back on the Siege Engine and take down the engineer that has locked down the Siege Engine, so the ramp will appear and your team will move up it. Remember, the drive shaft goes in the very front, the warhead in the right middle, and the engine in the very back left of the Siege Engine. Once you install these parts, you have completed this encounter and you can hop off the edge and get some more raid loot. This time you have the chance to get all of the heavies from this raid. So the new raid machine gun has been unlocked, the If Materia. Again, if you're going to spend a cache key, remember to open the specific hard mode chest. Next, we move on to the first Aksis encounter. This encounter is yet again going to have you kill servitors of the appropriate element with the appropriate elemental cannon, have the other teammates pick up the Siva bombs they drop and throw them at the massive glowing diamonds. There's going to be 2 diamonds in the first round, 3 in the second, and 5 in the last, with the last round having multiple servitors that spawn. Now this encounter is practically exactly the same. You're going to be doing the same exact stuff as in the normal mode of this encounter, with the one real difference being the appearance of the Siva activated turrets on the right, middle, and left sections of this raid. So the turrets, and you can see me shoot them in the background gameplay every once in a while, they're going to be exactly the same as they were in, you're going to probably know them from the Wretched Eye strike, where they just shoot at you and you just shoot them back in the Siva cluster, and then they disable for a little bit. However, they will come back up. So you're going to have to kind of be on top of this, make sure to disable those turrets whenever you see them alive, and then quickly go back to killing stuff. One shot from the cannon was disabling these turrets, and remember, you're not going to have to save cannon ammunition for Aksis or anything, so don't be afraid to just plug those turrets with your cannon if you see them up. Because if you're ignoring them, they're going to be spawning when ads aren't really spawning, so they can get the best of you if you're not paying attention. But again, you really just do exactly what you did in normal mode, just being a little bit more intense about it, because of course you don't want to die, and be on top of those turrets, and you will complete this encounter. You can get some new hard mode loot from this section. I got a new hard mode perfected Siva core artifact, definitely something good I was looking for, but there are no Siva cache chests on this encounter. And moving on, we have the final Wrath of the Machine heroic mode encounter. This time, you finally get to kill Aksis. Again. Now, just like the previous encounters, the base mechanics remain the same as in normal mode. You're going to have to kill servitors, throw the bombs directly at Aksis, and then once his shields are down, he's going to teleport, to which you need to have a player with Empowered jump on his back and slam. He's still going to have 3 rounds of teleportation, just like in normal mode, so don't change your tactics for that. The one thing that will change this time around for heroic mode is going to be that instead of throwing 3 Siva bombs at him to lower his shields, you're now going to have to throw 6. So once you've become empowered and killed those captains and collected their cannons, there's going to be multiple servitors spawning out of those spawn points, just like the final round of the previous encounter. So you basically do the exact same thing as you did in the previous encounter with the last round, moving around, shooting those servitors, calling out which servitors have spawned where, and the people with the bombs are just going to have to throw more bombs. But aside from that, the encounter is exactly the same. Kill multiple servitors, throw all 6 bombs at Aksis, lower his shields, and he will teleport. In which case, again, spread out your team in the appropriate locations so you have someone with Empowered on the left side, someone covering the middle, and someone on the right side. Once you've hopefully got in all of your damage phases and he teleports back to the middle, jump to one of the glowing pillars. Make sure your entire team jumps on one so you don't use up multiple pillars, because they will disappear once you jump back off. You're just going to do the same thing, rinse and repeat. Now that's really it for the mechanics of this section, but I do have some advice for players that may be struggling. Firstly, if you're empowered right side, let's say, and you've locked down the right side and you have the cannon, you really don't want to be jumping all around the map and then hoping to get back to that right side. You're really going to need to be able to snipe the servitors, be able to hit those servitors all the way across on the left side or in the middle, even if you're on that right side, because you're going to have to lock down that side again to make sure people are in position for when he teleports. So really focus on getting used to shooting those servitors from a long ways away. Additionally, many players are going to have trouble because certain players keep dying, and if you die again, you can't revive, so you're likely going to have to wipe after that point, because you really need all players alive to accomplish accomplish, these mechanics. I know you don't technically need them, and I'm sure people are going to 3-man this in a couple of weeks or whatever, but you really do want to have your team alive. And where you really want to focus your fire and make sure you're not being overwhelmed is those ads. Really don't treat this like normal mode in the sense where you run in, kill the captain as quickly as possible, and start shooting servitors, because there are going to be lingering ads that are going to do a lot more damage, and dying again is such a big deal. So don't be afraid to take a step back, take a couple extra seconds even if the captain is alive, to make sure to kill those ads around him, and then move in with full health and engage that captain, take his cannon, and get to killing those servitors. Additionally, don't just leave ads behind. If you do run forward, pop hammers or whatever, kill that captain very fast and go on to servitors. Whoever your teammate is should be taking care of those extra ads. Don't let a random vandal that everyone was too distracted to kill be the reason that your team has to wipe. So again, get used to sniping those servitors from across the map and really put an emphasis on taking down ads so you don't get overwhelmed. Now, once you're able to conquer this encounter and take down Aksis, enjoy some more awesome hard mode loot. This encounter is going to drop primaries for weapons, and again, make sure to open that right chest. I was lucky enough to get the new hard mode raid pulse rifle, which definitely looks pretty sweet. And in closing, my team activated all 5 monitors for science, but you don't get any rewards for doing that in hard mode. So it's not worth activating those monitors if you've already done it in normal mode. And guys, that is gonna wrap up the Wrath of the Machine Heroic mode for Dummies. I hope you guys enjoyed and found this guide helpful. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. Now, if you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at Aksis. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day and good luck with the Wrath of the Machine Heroic mode.